Welcome back to the Crafty Homesteader, where happiness is homemade. Hey guys, I just gonna go through some seeds here today and get some stuff planted. It's still pretty early. It's 6 weeks out from my last frost date. So when you're planting seeds or thinking about planting your garden, now would be the time to start planning to see what you want to plant, how much of you want to plant, because different vegetables have different grow periods of time. And then you also need to see if you need to start them like with a seed mat or start them early, or if you can direct sow. On the back of your seed packet, it tells you almost all the information that you would need. So like this is a black beauty zucchini from In My Gardener. It tells you that you can direct sow if the soil is workable. It tells you the days to germinate. It tells you how deep to plant the seeds. Plant 2 and 3 seeds in a mound. It needs full sun. And it takes 55 days to maturity. So when deciding whether or not I want to start a seedling of this or not, I would take into consideration when I want my first harvest to be. And with zucchini, I plant multiple sets of zucchini throughout the gardening season. One, because they are more susceptible to vine borers and squash bugs and stuff like that, and because zucchini is one of my favorite things to plant because it's so versatile in cooking and in canning. But on the back, see, like this is Paul Robeson tomato. It says right here, it says start indoors 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost date. So if I want to plant this one for this season, then I'm going to need to start this because I'm already on my 6-week mark. How I think I've gone over before how to find your last frost date. You can just Google your address and Google when's my last frost date for Dallas, Texas, or Amarillo, Texas, or Michigan, or wherever you are. You just Google it and it'll tell you when your last frost date is. Then you can just be like, hey Google, how many days until this date, or how many weeks until this date, or you can just look at the calendar and count backwards. So what I'm going to do right now is these are brand new seeds that I just ordered this year. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look through my seed buckets here to see if I have any of these already from last year left over before I plant the new ones. And if I have some, I'll use those first and then save these for next year, or if I need a second planting, or for maybe seed swaps or something. I know I have showed you guys these before. My seed boxes. So like I'm looking for a black beauty zucchini. So I have black beauty eggplant, butternut squash, just a regular squash, pumpkin. I have a long neck squash, eggplant, black beauty zucchini. So since I already have some and I know that these are older than those, I'm going to put these out to plant and I'll save those for next year or for a second planting. Okay. There's also another one I'm looking for is a cocozelle. If I have a cocozelle squash. Which I do. And I knew that I would because this is one of my favorite things to plant. So I'm going to set that aside. And then these two that I bought this year, I'll put back for later. I'm also gonna plant some eggplant this year. I've never planted eggplant before. So what I'm gonna do is I got some of these eggplant seeds in a seed swap. So I'm going to plant some of these. You can see that this is different. It's a handmade seed packet from Keeping Up with the Herd. It says, land that drinks in the rain, often falling on it, and produces a crop useful for those whom is formed, receives the blessing of God. Hebrews 6:7. I got this in the Whispering Willows plant swap last year. So, that I need to use. And I want a yellow squash. So, let's go with... I'm going to go with the crookneck yellow squash. Okay. See, the next thing that in my seeds that I want to check for are some holy basil and some different kinds of tomatoes. So you can see that I bought 4 types of tomatoes here. I went over those when I did my seed haul. But my favorite thing to grow is tomatoes. So like those are tomatoes. This whole thing is tomatoes. This whole thing is tomatoes. Like it's literally, and then I have a whole nother box with tomatoes. So tomatoes are one of my favorite things to grow, and I like growing all the different varieties. So I get really excited about tomatoes. And I order my tomato seeds from all over. These are Baker Creek. I have some from M.I. Gardener. I have some from Home Depot. I have some where I did some seed swaps. So, I mean, I'm not really picky about where I get my seeds from. I actually really, really like growing what's called an indeterminate tomato. So there's 2 kinds of tomatoes, the determinate tomato and an indeterminate tomato. A determinate tomato has a determined set of, it goes to a determined height, has a previously determined amount of flowers, then has a previously determined amount of fruit. So like if you cut a part of that plant off, it's not going to grow anymore, you're not going to get any more fruit. While an indeterminate tomato will grow, it'll keep growing and growing and growing and reproducing flowers and reproducing fruit as long as you take care of it and it's getting all of its basic needs met. Tomatoes like the Amish paste tomato and the San Marzano tomato are good for making like pasta sauces and tomato paste because they're kind of thicker and you don't have to boil them down so much when you're trying to make sauce. I always like planting the pineapple tomato. It's a pretty chunky tomato, and I just like the artwork on the seed packets. And you can see I have several of that pineapple because I really enjoyed that one. This one's called green sausage. This one's another one from a seed swap. It's called Thornburn's Terracotta Tomato. And then she had put on there that it's one of her top 5 tomatoes. So I'm going to try this one this year too. I try to save those for special occasions. Like I try to only plant a couple of them at a time so that I can enjoy someone else's garden in my garden. And when you plant, guys, like you can see like this has already been open. I've already used it. These are from last year, but seeds don't go bad as long as they're stored properly. So I obviously have a seed addiction. That's the one I was looking for. Green zebra. This one's cool. This one's called the Green Zebra. cherry tomatoes. Most of these are either a beefsteak tomato or a brandywine tomato. Okay. So I have my squash. I have an eggplant. I'm going to open this box and see if I have some more tomatoes in here. This box is mostly herbs and for medicinal reasons. So like this is like a tea mixture. It has hyssop, lavender, chamomile, basil, which I need to see if I have a Tulsa basil in here. Italian, we have purple basil, sweet basil, lemon basil, more lemon basil, and lemon basil. So I'm going to pull out one of the lemon basils, and that means I don't have the Tulsi basil. So I did order that this year, the holy Tulsi basil, because that's really hard to come by, and it's really good for you. So I'm going to leave that one out. And then I found the green zebra tomato, and that's one that I had ordered this year from In My Gardener. So I am going to plant this one. And then I still need to find a Paul Robeson, Hillbilly, and Dr. Wicky's. So I am going to keep out the Paul Robeson tomato, the Hillbilly tomato, and then Dr. Wicky's yellow tomato, as well as, like I said, the green zebra one. Last year, I think I planted like 40 varieties of tomatoes, so it was a lot. Like not just 40 plants, but like literally 40 different varieties. Oh look, more tomatoes. Got Cherokee Purple, Rutgers tomato, Pink Oxheart, Big Rainbow, Early Cascade, and look, watermelon. I ordered these back in September from In My Gardener. So I think I might try that one too. The hardest part for me is there's so many varieties. So I don't want to just grow for food purposes. I love growing the different flavors and seeing the different flavors when I mix them with my food, how they're going to taste. So we did tomato. Radishes, I'm going to direct sow because they grow very easily. Peppers. Okay, so we're 6 weeks out. So the main thing I'm wanting to plant today that I need to plant because it's time to is peppers and tomatoes. So I'm also going to pull out my peppers. Peppers and tomatoes are the ones that take the longest to germinate. So I always start with those first. Have cayenne peppers, habanero. My favorite thing to plant are jalapenos. I'll plant probably a whole package of jalapenos. Okay, I'm going to do a mixed bell pepper and then a poblano pepper. Carrots, I'll direct sow. And I don't think that you have to start okra inside either. Yeah, I wouldn't plant these until April. See, it has a little thing on the back that tells you. And it says sow in open ground. So this you would direct seed as well. See that it tells you on the back. So I still have some time with a lot of these things. I am going to plant some greens because it's still cool enough outside for them. I'm going to just direct sow some of those in one of my planters and see how that goes. What I've also done here, you can see this one's pretty empty, but these are seeds that I bought last year that I haven't used yet. And these are last year in September. And then these are ones that I just got in that in my gardener haul I did for you guys. So I want to keep those guys separate because I want to use my oldest seeds first. They don't really expire, but you want to try to use your oldest ones first, just for germinating purposes. I will take herbs and flowers and just broadcast them in my garden beds and around. Like I have a garden bed on this side of my garden and one on this side. That way, hopefully, flowers, the pollinators will go in between and they'll pollinate my plants. So what I'm going to do is I have some Sharpies here. I have my seeds. Have them up on here just to try to get them a little closer. I'm probably going to move you guys here in a minute. But what you're going to need is some kind of Sharpie. And I'm going to use these as a plant marker. These are actually store-bought plant markers. You could use popsicle sticks. I've used plastic spoons before. These were given to me by someone, so I'm just going to use them. These are the heavy-duty ones, so like once I write it on there, I can reuse them if I can keep up with them. So I'm going to use these for now, but like I said, I've used a plastic spoon. I've used popsicle sticks. I really don't like popsicle sticks because once it gets wet, like the wood like rots and it's just weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Sharpie and I'm going to write the name of my plant on this top part so that when I stick it down there, I know which seedlings are which. So for example, this says habanero. So then on here, I would just write I'm just going to write habanero on there. And then that one's done. And you would want to do this for each variety that you do. If you were just doing one variety, I really don't do it for my peppers. Right? The habanero one, I'm going to want to know which one it is because I'm not going to want to plant it close to my other peppers because it can make the other peppers hot even though they're not. What I really want the plant markers for is for my tomatoes. Especially the peppers, you can tell. If you only plant one variety of bell pepper, it's going to be that variety. If you only plant one variety of Tabasco pepper, it's going to be that. I normally only plant one kind of each pepper. That's not really the problem I have with keeping the plant markers. What I need the plant markers for are for the tomatoes because I want to be able to keep up with which ones germinate the quickest, which ones sprout the quickest, which one have a better tolerance. Maybe, and then once they're actually growing and putting fruit, then I can just be like, oh, well, that's the pink ox heart. Or, you know, I can look at this one and I'll know by looking at it once it has a fruit what it is. But in the beginning stages, all of them look the same. But I want to be able to keep up with, you know, which ones germinate quickly and things like that. Just for my own benefit for next year. Because last year I had one type of tomato that none of them out of the whole packet germinated, and so I don't care to plant that one anymore. So this is mainly for that purpose, but it is good to plant your seeds when you plant your seeds to mark them if you're planting more than one variety. If you're keeping it super basic and you only have one cherry tomato and one beefsteak tomato and one paste tomato, then you really don't need to label them unless you just want to. Alright, so you can see how I just written all the names down one side. And then we're just going to pull them off. you'll pull it off, and then it goes like down in here once you have put your dirt in your seedlings.